Hello there. As Saturday the 6th of May is Coronation Day for King Charles III, and I'm a patriotic Englishman, I thought it would be great to try some English sparkling wine. So this is the 2015 vintage of Hattingley Valley's King's Cuvee bottle-fermented sparkling wine. Hattingley Valley, as I've said before, is a relatively new operation. They started in 2008, Simon Robinson, the owner, having bought the farm in 2000, and they've grown really quickly. They've got a sort of a 650-ton winery, and they're gaining a reputation very quickly for the quality of their wines in terms of awards won and that sort of thing. There are no royal connections at Hattingley Valley, evidently. It just happens that part of the estate that Simon Robinson bought was called King's Farm, and hence they make King's Cuvee. The story of King's Cuvee is that it sort of came about as a bit of an accident. Evidently, when making their normal sparkling wines, they will barrel ferment a portion of that, and one year one of these barrels got forgotten. So they made it as a sort of a bit of a curiosity, really, into a sparkling wine, so 100% barrel fermented, and actually were quite pleased with the results. The story goes that Simon evidently gave it to a family member to use as the wine for their wedding. Anyway, so they've started making this as a regular thing. Evidently, if you are a passionate royalist and you want to celebrate the coronation, you can get an engraved bottle with a coronation crest on it, but the wine is actually only made in limited quantities. I mean, the number of bottles is noted on the label as I think 1761, so just less than 150 cases. It's not a large production wine. 2015 was not a great vintage, to be honest. It was really quite wet through most of the summer, but there was a nice sort of dry, sunny autumn that enabled the fruit to ripen. But because picking was quite late, ripeness had been held back, and the wines have good acidity, so really good for sparkling base. The wine is a blend of, I think, 50% Chardonnay, 34% Pinot Noir, and the balance, the 16%, is Meunier. Because it's a vintage wine from 2015, there's no reserve wine going into the blend at all. So the grapes are hand-picked, they're whole bunch pressed, so you get lovely clean juice, and that was all fermented in old Burgundy barrels. So you've got 228 litre oak barrels, but that had been used previously for the fermentation of white Burgundy. So there shouldn't be any oak influence. It's more an influence of temperature and the availability of oxygen, which helps to create create a set of blending options, so that you've got lots of different fermentations going on, all at slightly different temperatures and speeds, and different yeasts may take over each fermentation at a slightly different time. So you've got a lot of different flavours, and they'll pick out the best 6 barrels, and that becomes the King's Cuvee, evidently. As far as the winemaking is concerned, once the blend's happened, you do the second fermentation in the bottle with the addition of sugar and yeast to produce the sparkle, and then the wine, this has been left for 6 years with the dead yeast in the bottle, allowing that to break down and give out proteins and sugars, so adding a sort of yeasty brioche sort of flavour, but also altering the surface tension, allowing smaller bubbles to form. After those 6 years, the wine is degorged, the yeast comes out. There's a slight topping up, and about 6 grams per litre sugar equivalent is added there. So not a high dosage, so the wine would class as a brew. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? In terms of colour, medium yellow colour, maybe some greenish hints. Lovely fine bubbles rising. Even in this glass, I can see persistent fine bubbles. They're more notable than the non-vintage wine was, and that had only had 4 years aging on its lees. Let's have a look at the aromas, shall we? Those are quite vividly yeasty, bready. There's a brioche note. There's a slight salinity to the whole thing, actually, a slightly minerally note coming through there. giving us a sort of slightly savoury aspect to the whole thing. But the aromas are quite pungent. Perhaps a touch of lemony fruit coming through there, but much more the sort of the creamy, slightly yeasty notes. So let's have a taste. Tasting that, that's really crisp. There were no notes as to whether malolactic conversion had been allowed to go through or not. I suspect not, because that's really quite tart. Certainly it didn't all get that. But that's making it very piquant, and then the wine opens out, and there's a roundness that the yeastiness is giving it. There is a lovely freshness from the Chardonnay notes there, but the Pinot Noir and the Meunier are just building more roundness in the back palate there. And actually, there's a toastiness starting to come out. The additional yeast aging has given that. And now I'm getting some quite creamy, rich notes at the back palate. I mean, this is not a heavyweight, rich sparkling wine. I think Hattingley Valley's style is much more sort of lean, elegant, aperitif style, but this has much more yeasty complexity and toastiness than their non-vintage reserve had. So you can really see an improvement in sort of complexity, hence quality, and I think the balance is different as well. The additional sugar, this has, as I say, 4 grams. I think the reserve had 3 or 4, but that's needed because there's the sharper acidity cutting through there. But that sharpness is really leaving my palate lovely and fresh and clean. This is a very classy wine. The persistence of flavours is excellent. The complexity is lovely. So yes, there's not a lot of it around. I mean, whether you get it embossed or not, it doesn't really matter. That's a fantastic drink. It's a wine that I think, because of its intensity and its freshness, you could very happily age for 5 or 6 years, possibly longer. That would help add some richness and complexity. So whether you're a royalist or not, I hope you'll enjoy some English sparkling wine. Thank you very much for watching. Do like and follow, and I hope you'll join us again. Bye now.